Really?
Hi, everybody.
What? That's good.
Well, for the moment you're alive. Sometimes we gotta wonder.
It,
Um,
it would be convenient if I wasn't.
Everybody give us an audio and video check. Hi, David. Hi, Honey Bunny.
Well, give me the notepad.
There you go.
Uh, audio check. Video check.
Can you see him? Can you
Chamber
hear
pressure
him?
check. Cryogenic check. Yeah.
Yeah, the little sound things are going up and down. Well, there.
Ah, that'll help.
There. That should make it go up and down even better, but it was going up and down as it is. Hi, Dave. Dave Vanderwall's here. Hi, Dave.
Hey,
How are
Dave.
you?
How's it going?
David Villa says, we have been heard.
Well, past tense. Anyhow, so as you can see, we had a busy week last week. Jared showed up on Wednesday with his family and some samples. And due to constraints he had little control over, he didn't show up till, what, 6 o'clock in the evening, something?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure when it was. I think it was Wednesday. But anyhow, be that as it may. So they showed up a little late in the day, which meant that I wanted to get a sample roasted and bottle rolled and have at least a 6 hour roll on it by the next morning. So I get it over to the lab and they could maybe get me some results really quick. And that all worked out, but it did require me to stay up till about 2 o'clock in the morning roasting sulfides. Uh,
Dave Vanderwall has been a good comment.
well, we'll get into that here. The primary thing that was brought was a large sample of the what we call the depleted mill sulfides. When they first crush the ore and run it through a separation process, first thing they do is what's called a roughing pass. And actually, it was a midnight propane, David. But during that process, they make concentrates, and they're basically, there's different hoppers that it goes into, different funnels at the end of the table. And these will be the 1, the 2, and the 3. There's also the tailings trough along the other edge of the table. So anyhow, they brought me some sulfide concentrates which had been reprocessed from the number 1 cons. They take the number 1 cons, retable those again, and they can get a pretty good gold line and a pretty clean sulfide. And we that was the main thing, to see what's in those sulfides and how to get it out. That's my job right now, is to find out what's in it, how to get it out. So the first thing to do was homogenize the sulfides, the 40-pound sample. And an easy way to do that is you run it through a splitter, then combine the two portions and run it through the splitter again, and just keep doing that 4 to 6 times. And that gives you pretty good homogenization. And then we split it down to about roughly 2 kilograms. And I took and dried uh, kilogram and a half, something like 1.5, 2 kilograms. Put it in the oven and dried it. Now the reason for this is I wanted to be able to weigh it accurately and then roast it and then weigh it accurately again. If it had moisture, then that would show up as if it was a roasting change. It wasn't, it was just a drying change. So I had to dry it, then split off 1,000-gram sample and get it roasting. And make a long story short, about 13% of the mass disappeared during the roasting process. Then I got 500 grams. Well, actually, I went 100 grams because it was reported that this sulfide concentrate might be extremely rich in gold. I'll explain why I think that is inaccurate and why in a minute. But anyhow, because I was looking at potentially an extraordinary amount of gold, I went and added a little extra Eco Goldex, and I did a 100-gram sample in 1,000 milliliters of solution. So that was to make life a little more reliable. I mean, I used double the Eco Goldex I normally would, and it would make it easier to get in the range for the laboratory. So I hit the bed about 2:30 in the morning, got the sample at 8 o'clock in the morning, got to the lab, dropped it off. This is a sample here. This is from the sulfide bottle roll, and this is a 48-hour sample. I like to take a sample at 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, and 48 hours. Just to plot the extraction curve. Well, thank you, David. So, got that going. And then the next morning, we started doing some of the secondary stuff. We had split off a sample of the sulfides as is, and of the big 40-pound sample, split it down, sent off like 20, 30 grams to the assay. Split off a sample of the roasted material. Same material, just roasted, and sent it off to the assayer. Well, actually, I put it aside. Sent it off next day, I think it was.
Yeah, so
But then the next test I wanted to run was how much of the gold in those samples is free milling gold, something that you can extract through gravity, flotation, something like that. So I panned some samples down and panned it and panned it and panned it until I'd removed all of the free milling gold, and then put the remaining stuff in the oven to dry it out. And then sample those two, also packaged up for the assay. They also had another 3 samples. It was number 2 cons from that same batch. I don't believe these were the retabled, but they might have been. And the number 3 cons from that same 7.5-ton batch they ran that day. And then there was sulfides left from a previous batch of material. Okay. So those were the other 3 samples that we sent off to the assay lab. I wanted a sample of tailings, but they didn't get that properly. It was clear that the grade was way too high for tailings, so we didn't even bother sending it off. Like, I'm not sure what it is, but it isn't tailings. Okay.
yeah, sampling isn't.
We also, once we got the bottle roll back from the roasted, which we had by like 2 in the afternoon. Those guys over at Alpine can be quick sometimes. We decided we'd do a bottle roll of the sulfides as well. Okay. Now, as I explained, we were assuming these might be extremely rich. Okay. Hi, Mr. Virtue.
Hi, Mr. Virtue.
However, the bottle roll didn't seem to show that. As a matter of fact, it was like 2 orders of magnitude lower. Like, well, that's really, really odd. When I hand panned the roasted material, didn't see much gold. Okay? So, what's going on here? I questioned them and found out what the problem might be is what they had tried was they tried roasting some of these sulfides themselves and then smelting them down with a little bit lead as a collector metal. Okay? And then they poured that and cupelled it, and they wound up with some pretty substantial grade. However, upon inquiry, I found out the crucible they were using was the same crucible they were using for pouring their normal gold smelts. Okay, so now we have a possible substantial source of cross-contamination. Evaporative gold, it is possible. That is one of the reasons that I wanted sulfides and roasted both fire assayed. There is absolutely no reason to believe you're not going to lose gold here. It's not the most common thing, but it's not horribly uncommon either. So, part of this is to verify that we're not vaporizing gold. And in order to tell that, we have to know what the reduction in mass is when you roast it. Because if you reduce the sulfides to oxides, reduce the mass, but you also vaporize roughly the same amount of gold, you're going to get the same number from the assay lab. And you're going to look and say, wow, it's beautiful. We're not losing that much gold. But instead, in this case, it would have been like 13%, which is not horrible, but it's not great either. So,
Depends on how big a number, 13.
well, and what else you have to do. So, these were a lot of the tests. We also did some hand panning, looking at stuff. We looked at the roasted stuff, hand panning it. We tried using the square pan that Prospector Trip makes, which I really like that pan for cleaning up a heavy concentrate. We're trying to get all the other stuff off. It does a pretty good job. You have to be kind of gentle with it and stuff. But it seemed to do a really good job of getting. You want to turn that light on, little one? My face is in the shadows. That probably looks worse. But anyhow. So, anyhow, I really like that square pan. Now, we tried using the smooth water concentrator, finisher there. And I got what looked like gold showing, but I am highly suspicious something weird is going on here. Now, years ago, Chris from Bullhead City brought me a rock that looked really, really interesting. It was just speckled with stuff that looked like gold, had that nice bright yellow gold color. But when I crushed it, it was iron pyrite. But it had an oxidized layer on it that looked much more like gold or possibly chalcopyrite than it did iron pyrite. Okay. So that's a possibility. When we did the test with the VDR sluice, that whole sluice is just buried in pretty yellow looking stuff. And there's no way that's gold.
Well, I've been saying.
So, well, there's lots of pyrites there. That's one of the difficulties with this material is we have these pyrites which contaminate the gold. And so we're trying to figure out how much gold is in the pyrites, how much gold is just associated with the pyrites. I like that, David. Bad shiny. Yeah. Um, and it's not that clear under the microscope. So there are certainly some particles that are rounded, that look malleable, like they've been beat into balls. But it's not. Hello, Farmer John. But it's not abundantly clear exactly what's gold and what's yellow pyrites and all this other stuff. Okay, it's just not that clear. So we're going to have to wait on these fire assays. Now we sent them off to Hiddle, so we should have answers within a week. By the end of this weekend, I assume I'll have answers. By next weekend's live stream, I should have some answers. And it makes a huge difference, both for the overall profitability of the project and what exactly we have to do to optimize it. Now, so we were doing a lot. They gave me a was it an iPad?
Yeah.
Okay, it's an iPad, and so that it can access some kind of stuff in the cloud or whatever. That's the cloud that's working on pretty much, is the little one.
Yeah, they can upload and share files with us in the cloud.
Yeah. And so they gave that to me, and it's all programmed. I'm still going to have help at times, I'm sure. I'm starting to learn a few things. But we were also looking at the actual mining operations and what the immediate mine plan might be to exploit things to maximum advantage. Okay. So it's one of those deals where we were going through, like, that's what Eva was at the end of that video. Eva was looking with Jared at videos of the iPad, and she was suggesting various exploration targets, whereas we had done other stuff trying to ascertain what might be the best way to go about exploiting things. Apparently, one of the complications of this situation is you're dealing with a third world country. the original uh, pay for mining was basically a share of the pay dirt. Okay. And so the miners, unsurprisingly, want to dig the best dirt. Okay. They want to follow the highest grade stuff, etc. Now, the problem with that is it can very easily lead you into a position where you don't have easy haulage, things like that. You're trading production for higher grade. And in order to keep this mill running 5, 6 days a week, they need production. They need tons. And so they were running into an issue where the miners were doing one thing and it wasn't following the plan that was laid out for considerations other than what the miners considered important. Now, it was my assumption that the miners were wanting the pay dirt because they figured it was a benefit over a salary. Now, right now, the guys are basically getting a daily wage plus bonus if they exceed some goals. They weren't necessarily terribly happy with that. So we did a lot of discussion. And when I was talking to Jared, it turned out that one of the major motivators of the miners for wanting pay dirt was occasionally, but on a regular basis, that pay dirt would have a lot of gold in it. And so they were big. And so it became like a gambling thing. They want the pay dirt because we might win something big, as opposed to, yeah, just give me a good solid pay. So we worked out a provisional system whereby, first of all, you had at the time at least 4 working areas. Okay. 2 straight ahead headings where they were basically working on a level, and 2 down winzes, subshafts in there. And they were wanting to get a daily total of 10 tons a day, and they based their bonus money on 10 tons a day for the whole mine. And that's not ideal because each group is now in an involuntary association with the other mining groups. The mining, they're just teams, call it, not really groups. Okay. So I suggested you've got to break it up by working area. Hey, Ricky. Each team has their own challenges, their own constraints, and should have their own individual team goals. It's not it's not 4 teams need to add up to this. It's like this team needs to do this, that team needs to do that. Hey, Douglas. I really didn't see a great deal of gold in the stuff we had, Douglas. We're working on that. But anyhow, hey Goldor. And so anyhow, if you need 10 tons a day, you take a look at the challenges each team faces. I mean, obviously, if you got a team sinking shaft and hauling it up by hand, you have a totally different situation than a team developing forward and just wheelbarrowing it out the entrance. Okay? So that's why you have to individualize the goals. Plan was each team will have a daily goal. You're part of that 10 tons is this right here, and you need to get this. Now, if you exceed that, you're into bonus money. And it's fairly significant bonus money. Okay. Not gigantic, but it is significant. It will make a difference. Okay. So if say team A has a 5-ton a day goal, once they achieve that, then they're into bonus money. And here's the interesting thing. The next day they get a little raffle ticket. Okay. Now they get to put one person's name on it from the team. Whoever they select by whatever method they want to select. And it goes into the raffle ticket holder thing. Each team, each day, has the opportunity to earn a ticket. The ticket is individualized for a very particular reason we'll get to in a little bit. If the team doesn't make its ton goal, or if they do not build the tunnel according to specification, it's not as wide as it's supposed to be, it's not as tall as it's supposed to be, it's not on the grade it's supposed to be, it's not heading in the direction it's supposed to be, no ticket that day. And you don't get any more tickets until you fix the screw up.
The reason for that is these people were not even paying attention to what their bosses told them to do.
Yeah. They gave them instructions and then they went and did other stuff. It's like, okay, you want to play that game, we're going to have to get a little bit more heavy-handed, you know? So that gives them the ability to easily discipline a crew for screwing up, okay? And they have to fix it up, and then that hurts their production for the next day. So they may lose 2 tickets that there, okay? Well, this is what we're trying to avoid. The ore is not so rich that you've got visible gold, okay? I understand the concern, Ricky, and there may be issues in the future. Right now, that's not a terrible big problem. But anyhow, if they make I think we figured if the whole crew, all teams together, meet the daily tonnage thing that day, get basically a check mark. Okay, you guys met the overall goal for today. At the end of the week, they've met their daily goals all week long. Then at Saturday afternoon, at end of shift, it's beer and carne asada. And you make a tick mark. You got 1 week now where you made total tonnage goals. If you make 4 weeks in a row where all your tonnage goals are met, guess what? Now it's time to draw tickets. And you'll have a significant number of smaller tickets, say 5, where it's like, okay, crew age Jose, the ticket number 7. You got your ticket, sub there. Okay, fine. Here's an extra day's pay. Okay. So you do this for about 5 guys. Then you have, the second prize is going to be bigger. Not sure exactly what, but it'll be bigger. And then the grand prize will be like, equivalent to $500. Something big. And so this is to replace that, big score that we need from the high, from the ore we get. So that becomes the gambling thing. Let's see. Let me look here. Right now, I'm not available to leave at the moment. Among other things, I don't have a functional passport, which I need to work on. There's some other things too.
Dude, I wish, Douglas, dude, I wish they had.
We got some plans there, Douglas. We have some unwritten agreements at the moment, and if things get a little more complex, there will be written agreements. But right now, we're still trying to figure out what the situation is. It's awfully hard to come up with a reasonable agreement when you don't know what the situation is. So,
As I told him this past week, they're damn lucky I don't do the negotiating.
so anyhow, so that's the basics of the incentive program. If your team beats the daily goal, you're into bonus money. If all the teams beat the daily goals for a whole week, it's beer and carne at the end of the week. If you do it 4 weeks in a row, it's fiesta time and raw tickets. So this gives them the kind of thing to keep them moving. And also, to a certain extent, like if you're on week 4 and one of your teams is having a problem, be it bag digging, somebody got hurt, somebody's sick, whatever, the other teams are going to want to no, we're going to help take over the load because we don't want to lose this week. We want to draw tickets. Okay? So that's kind of the plan. We'll see how it all works out, but what the goal was is to take their gambling instinct and their proclivity for partying and fiesta and stuff and turn it to the advantage of the company to get them to work more consistently according to plan and meet the goals. So, I say that's some of the stuff we talked about. In addition, we had 5 kids that were here the first day, and some. Um, Jared's wife, um, Carmen. Yeah, yeah. She took care of the children, kept them busy during the days, and this and that and the other, and even provided us with lunches during the day too. Um, so she took a lot of the load off, but even and I enjoyed having some youngsters around that were excited and interested in what was going on and stuff like that. It's kind of like grandkids. You have them for a little while, it's fun, and when they start getting on your nerves, it's like, bye, have fun, see you next time. So, um, that was the kids were great. Special mention to uh, Linnea.
Yeah,
Linnea. She's a very curious person. Uh, she'll make a good engineer or scientist someday, I suspect. You know, um, that's. Uh, but it was fun. It was fun having kids. Um, let's see. Overall, I think we got a lot of progress made. I'm not sure what we got accomplished per se. Got some progress made.
got a lot of valuable information. We discovered there's no process and labor problem, which just about sums up a mine.
So anyhow, we're
It's worked
working
out
on
real well.
improving a number of situations. They don't have a mine map either. So
Yeah, I
that
think
was another thing.
I think the last investors, their miners went nuts when they hit a hot pocket and the whole thing collapsed.
I'm not sure if it's the last investor, but anyhow, Apparently, yeah, the miners went and they found a hot pocket. They just mined it out to where the ceiling was caving in. It's like right in the middle of where we'd like to go. And so I agree, Ricky. Um, right now, I'll be staying here for a while, so that risk is mitigated by itself. Um, but yeah, it there's a number of complications we're working through, and uh, I talked to Brandon today, and I said, "Are you guys still sampling the batches as you run them?" He said, "No," and I said, "Yeah, you need to at an absolute minimum. You need to sample the head grade and the tailings. The other stuff in between isn't important. Okay, it'll work out all right. You need to know how much you start with and how much you're throwing away. Everything else you'll get sooner or later." So,
It is fairly bizarre that people don't realize the importance of testing.
yeah. Oh yeah, I had a guy work for me one time in the kettle corn business that yeah, he was in the border between Bolivia and Peru doing some exploration and wound up in a 3-day firefight. Yeah, because apparently Peru and Ecuador disagreed on who owned that particular ore body. It can get interesting. And so, uh, I say, we got a lot of things, but you need to test your tailings more than you need to test anything in between. You need to test the head grade to know how much you're starting with, the tailings to see what you're throwing away. In this case, when they crush the rock, they run it over the tables on what's known as a roughing pass, and all the number one, number two, and number three are going to get reprocessed. In a normal mill, those would go to secondary cleaning circuit. However, they're trying to make do with what they got. But if you lose material if you lose gold to the tailings at that stage, you're toast. Okay? It's gone forever, so to speak, unless you're reprocessing the tailings later. So the important thing is to monitor those tailings, to pan them almost continuously until you really have a good feel for it. But pan it consistently enough in terms of time intervals small enough so you're confident you don't miss a change in the way things uh, work. Yeah, it would be a job for rock. Exactly right, David. But anyhow, so
Yeah, that's what I said when
people
they were here.
people lose sight of that fact. They think the important thing is what do we get into the gold line? No, the important thing is what you don't send to the tailings, because everything else is going to be reprocessed. They're going to reprocess everything, and the tailings from that cleaning operation goes back and is run through the roughing operation again, so that anything you miss, you're going to catch again. And if you do that, and there's never anything nothing significant in the tailings, sooner or later you're going to get it. But that's the key. Everything that all the tailings from that cleaning operation is either you got three products. One, gold line concentrates. This is where they suck the gold line right off the tabletop. Two, depleted sulfides. In other words, the sulfide's below the gold line and it's got some gold in it. Then the other is tailings. Those tailings from that cleaning operation are not thrown away. They're recirculated back to the roughing operation. That's part of the problem, David, is everyone's working kind of on a moment by moment basis, it's a bit chaotic. It's not routine. And everyone needs to understand the system and how to make the system work without complication. It's basic principle. The only thing you ever throw away is the rougher tailings. Everything else gets recirculated somewhere. The other stuff, the gold line concentrates, they're doing a pretty good job of getting reasonable recovery in that. They take the gold line concentrates, hand pan it to a gold supercon and the residuals. They roast them both. The gold supercons get fluxed and smelted, and the residuals get fluxed and smelted. Okay? The problem was that was the crucible they were using to test the roasted sulfides.
Which really does not work.
Not well. Ideal. Okay? Seguros, David. But anyhow.
And yet every time I try to talk to anybody about process control, their eyes glaze over.
I say, it's just one of those things that they got so many things they're thinking about. It's hard to think clearly about any one thing because you get new emergencies pop up, labor, mine plan, whole 9 yards. So, and then there's relationships with the corporativa, with the local government. There's all kinds of things that they're juggling. It's a very complicated job. I can focus on much narrower part of it. What I try and do is also focus on what they're doing and go, yo, you remember what we said about this? Oh, no, yeah, we forgot. Well, reminding you. So, yeah, it would be a lot easier if I could go down there. But right now, that's not possible. That's why we got the iPad and everything else. But it's complicated. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And they're so inexperienced at this that they don't intuitively understand the importance of process control. You know, taking samples. Even if you don't send it to a lab, take the samples, put them on a shelf.
They also don't intuitively understand what you pay for somebody. Yeah. That seems to be the biggest part of a lot of problems.
So, anyhow, another thing we're working on is the leach solution. Last week, I think it was Jean-Francois told me that 3 molar glycine, or no, 1 molar glycine and 3% hydrogen peroxide would dissolve gold. We got a test running back there. And as far as I know, it hasn't dissolved all the gold yet. And it's been several hours now.
Yeah, exactly, David. Trying to get ready.
So, I've got other modifications. First of all, he had no idea what pH to run. So I'll try it. I think the other side pH of 11 was desired. I can also increase the temperature. See what happens. I'm waiting on the potassium permanganate to test the new thiosulfate leaching solution. I'm waiting on ferric chloride to test thiourea leaching. And I've got various possibilities for using poor man's aqua regia. Basically, hydrochloric acid and a nitrate makes an NOCl molecule, which it really likes to eat up gold. And so I'm going to be testing a number of those things. I don't like working using hydrochloric acid or uh, aqua regia in general because of the fume. Although if I can dilute it a little bit, avoid the be too bad. And little one, can you take over for a little bit, please?
Um,
I need a short break.
yeah, I suppose. I'll be right there.
Okay.
You are interrupting my puppy match game. He's interrupting my. Way to go, Red Wing. Way to go, Honey Bunny. Good temperature change. We had several days of cool weather here and a bunch of rain, and now it's a little bit warmer again. It was a very good week. A lot of things got done. I don't think it's going to make any difference in the way things actually happen because, things. Yeah, at least we got samples now. We don't even know exactly really what the samples are, but we do know they come from rocks that were there. So, yeah. We have samples. How useful they are is another question entirely, but samples happened. So, there was that. Hi, Mr. Virtue. Y'all may have noticed that Silver is now flirting with the new practical floor of $40. Yeah. We've been dancing around there having fun for a few days now, and that's probably going to continue. I did hear from a friend of mine who's as old as we are that thanks to stacking metals slowly and carefully for decades, he and his wife are going to be not working starting next year. They're going to be spending their time living, enjoying kids and grandkids, and doing things and volunteering and doing the things that they want to do as opposed to busting their tail. So that's a very nice thing. It is nice to know that such things happen. In other random news, there's something very strange going on in the big ranch business. The last, I don't know, every once in a while you'll see a big ranch. I mean, we're talking the kind that holds 5,000 head of cattle. You'll see a big ranch go on the market. And it will sit there and it will languish. And it will languish, and sooner or later it gets bought for a reasonable value. Well, here of late, a couple of random things that may or may not be associated have been happening. First of all, various small beef associations in the United States, the kind that represent actual ranchers that sell to actual people, have been sounding the alarm that this new USDA chicks ideas of it, and the refusal to declare a permanent moratorium on cartel beef coming wandering over the southern border, as should have been done long, long ago, is going to lead to a lot more smaller and mid-sized ranchers going out of business. Their holdings are going to be bought up, and we're going to see a consolidation wave in American ranching, because it is their contention, tinfoil hat or not, that the government and other people are conspiring to destroy the small to mid-sized beef industry in the United States. Okay. At the same time, that has been going out on X. People have noticed over the last several months that quite a few small and mid-sized ranches, and even a couple of mega spreads, the kind that can manage 10,000 head or more on private land, not counting what they lease from the federal government, but their own holdings, as in they own a quarter section, that kind of thing. Or they own a section, that kind of thing, are showing up on the real estate market. And almost as fast as they're showing up, they're getting bought up, in many cases by party or parties unknown. And this has caused the price of those types of ranches to spike 250% in like the last year or so. Okay? So we are seeing a whole series of different pressures that are coming against the American beef farmer. First, we're seeing USDA policy changes and policy decisions that are happening under the radar that nobody pays attention to, that would benefit big beef and would benefit the foreign actors that own the big beef processing, but actually make it harder for smaller beef to continue to do business. We are also seeing that the government, despite making public noises about Amos Miller and protecting American farming, etc., is doing jack shit for the Amish community. The Amish are beginning to get upset about that. They're doing jack shit to help Amos Miller because they're not changing the policies that are being wrongly interpreted by the state of Pennsylvania in the first place, that not only hamper Amos, they hamper other farmers that are selling clean food, both inside their own states and across state lines through membership clubs. They are keeping in place injurious policies that they said they were going to be lifting or reinterpreting, that have a disparate impact on small and mid-sized beef producers. And absolutely nothing is being done on this whole business of foreign actors buying our domestic food supply piecemeal and here and there, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, it is rather interesting to note that our government is making all kinds of noises right now about they put silver on the critical metals list. That was a good step. Okay, they actually acknowledged that silver is a critical industrial/military metal, and it's now on the critical metals list along with the rare earths and about 50 or 60 other things as something that must be prioritized in our mining policy going forward. That was a good thing. They make all kinds of noises about we need to bring our mining back. We need to drill, baby, drill and get energy independence, and mine, baby, mine and get mining independence. They're being very, very quiet about the undermining, hollowing out, and taking over of agriculture. And I'm sorry, as much as I love silver, I can't eat it. And as much as I love having $1.99 gas when I get a rebate on Circle K fuel card, I can't eat that either. So, all that to say, we need to be putting pressure on our Congress critters and pressure on our USDA and pressure on our state governments to protect our farmland from foreign actors and to protect and advance American meat, American processing, American produce. All that shit should be being done here, because we can't make America great again if everybody else owns our food. And of course they don't care, David Villa. But the fact is, we need to get on the record. It's like the FCC. The FCC is more than willing to yank licenses if they get enough complaints. But people don't bother to complain when CNN and other bad actors violate FCC rules. You have to create a paper trail. Bureaucrats won't do anything without one. Anyway, silver and gold, unbelievably, are still on sale. And unbelievably, of course, that means we're broken and not buying hardly any right now, which is very, very annoying. Stack up your trucks, people. And while you're at it, look for local and regional beef if you can afford it. Local and regional food if you can afford it. Support your local farmers. Go to eatwild.com, I believe it is. They list all the ranches and farms around the country that will sell to you, that you can get memberships, that you can have food shipped to you. Support local agriculture. Because these people are going to friggin' kill us otherwise. Okay? And remember, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Bye-bye.
Okay. Anyhow, so that's the layout until I get these assays. I'm going to be working on the solution chemistry because it has application no matter what. But that's kind of it at the moment. Yeah. I think we had a really productive week in terms of getting things accomplished. It wasn't a highly profitable week, in my opinion, because a lot of things we learned weren't. We kind of defined numbers, but the numbers that we defined weren't highly desirable. But at least they're defined.
Yep. And it yet again displayed why you do this stuff for you.
Yeah, it's. I think we'll be able to, make them profitable and stuff. But it's a lot easier when you figure out exactly what you need to do before you start doing it.
It's going to be an uphill slog. Corrupt government and minors.
Just all the various factors involved. That will depend, Jeff. There are many times the answer is no. Sometimes the gold is on the outside of the sulfide particles, and in a case like that, it can be leached relatively effectively. If it is inside the sulfide particle and small enough and encapsulated enough, then the answer is no. It won't leach until you break down the sulfide. That's what the roasting process is for, is to break those sulfides down, turn those impermeable crystals into something that is more permeable. It's porous now. So, yeah, good luck on that one, Ricky. But anyhow, so the answer is, as a general rule, no. Sulfides don't leach very well. You have to break them down first. There are ways you can do it besides roasting, but if you can concentrate it first, roasting is pretty efficient if you don't vaporize a lot of gold. Okay? Well, you know what an honest politician is, honey bunny. One who stays bought. But anyhow, so as a general rule, gold in sulfides is untouchable. You have to break the sulfides down. They're trying pressure oxidation processes. If you can concentrate the sulfides, then roasting ain't bad. But if those sulfides are like a small percentage of the overall rock mass and you can't concentrate them very well, well, then the problem is you have to treat the whole rock mass. And heating the entire mass of rock to roasting temperatures is incredibly energy intensive. So doing things like pressure oxidation and such. That is correct, Noble. Uh, I didn't come up with that. Robert Heinlein said it. I think he stole it from somebody too.
Oh yeah, he filed the label of that one. So the
Yep.
Romans had a similar saying. Matter of fact, it was a point of honor in Rome that if you accepted payment, they'd bought.
You're now an employee.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyhow, the um, one of the big questions that we're doing here. This is why I depleted the sulfides of any pannable gold and then sent it off for analysis. So you know what the sulfides are. We know what the sulfides minus the pannable gold is. That tells us how much gold is encapsulated in the sulfides and or bound to the sulfide. Okay?
Kind of important type of.
So that informs us on what we need to do to get it. If all the gold is in pannable sulfides, pannable concentrates, perhaps a high efficiency separation, could be a gravity, something like that. I'd be thinking maybe a flotation. Now, you might be able to float the gold and not the sulfides, but I bet you that you could float the sulfides and not the gold. Either way works, as long as you make a separation.
Well, I will say this:
Mm-hmm.
laws of instructions on anything complicated.
Maybe the first time. But anyhow, so we have say it's a complicated situation right now. We're trying to simplify it. But in order to simplify it, you have to analyze it. That's where we're at. Yes, they're tabling the ore on site. That is correct. And then they retable it on site, get a high gold concentrate, smelt it down, and that's their actual gold that they're selling for operating expenses right now. The question is, how much are they losing, and how can it be captured? We don't even know for a fact right now they're losing enough to worry about. Pretty sure they are. But that's what we're trying to do here. Just figure that out. So that's the situation with that. Don't ever use equipment that you use for final refining and processing for testing without being very careful to clean them well, because cross contamination is going to be a huge potential. Uh, I got some preliminary results today. I'll be doing more analyses later, but I took some of these roasted sulfides and applied muriatic acid. Plenty of time to digest most of all the iron oxides, and then decanted and rinsed. I don't see a whole lot of gold. So I don't know. What is pressure oxidation? Um, Pressure oxidation is where you create a chemical environment under elevated temperatures and pressures that causes the sulfides to oxidize in a reasonable period of time. Okay. It's basically like putting it in a pressure cooker. You know how a pressure cooker breaks down meat in a reasonable period of time? Same principle, but much more extreme. And you would possibly put in pure oxygen and high temperatures and pressures. I mean, hundreds of degrees centigrade. Um, and you're going to have to use a container that can handle those pressures and corrosive quantities. I don't know if it's still there, but there was a time where there was a pressure vessel over at Cyprus Sea Rita that was on the order of 10 feet in diameter and 50 feet long that was made out of titanium and worth about like $3 million that had been an experiment in pressure oxidation. Now, obviously, it worked at laboratory scale, or they wouldn't have scaled it up to a production scale. But it didn't work well on a production scale,
say,
or they'd keep using it.
Equally obviously,
Yeah, flotation has a lot of possibilities. And that's if all of the gold coming off the tables is essentially free gold, then a small test cell size flotation unit might be good enough to solve the problem. Just get a selective flotation. But I don't know flotation. And, if it would take a flotation specialist to figure that one out, probably. Now, would it be possible if it's free gold? Probably. And would it be a good idea? Maybe. Absolutely.
I think it would.
Yeah. I say so. It's definitely one of those things you look at as a possibility. Oh, but you have to characterize what you're dealing with a little better. When I dissolved that sample of roasted material, it was only 5 grams in hydrochloric and decanted and rinsed and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's not the kind of gold I'd like to see in this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of microfine gold that either dissolved or just hand away. I have no idea. But I wound up with a pretty clean silica looking material with the occasional speck of gold. Okay. So that would indicate to me that theoretically you could just be able to bottle roll something. And that's what I'll be testing over the next week, is to figure out what's the best way of getting it out. I know that Aqua Regia is good at, dissolving gold rapidly. But whether
it's not something scale or
well, that's why what they call poor man's Aqua Regia, which is basically hydrochloric acid cheap, muriatic acid cheap, and a nitrate, like potassium nitrate, like we got in the other room over there from Dave. There's all kinds of ways you can play that.
Oh, I
Yeah, I'm going to be trying some slightly diluted material. I used to use something called chloronitric acid, which, as I recall, apparently aqua regia is also called chloronitric acid. Basically, the first time I was in chloronitric acid was basically 1/3 concentration or 1/4 concentration. Uh, those files here. And
He's looking for something useful, people.
ah, here they are. Okay. Mining gold with dibutyl carbitol. Okay, so let me see here. Need eyes. Okay. Liquid to liquid separation. Okay, so basically, concentrated gold E444 dibutyl carbitol. Glycol dibutyl ether. So how do you dissolve it? Well, I had a lot of stuff. I'll put it factor.
You might as well.
Okay, well, I was trying to find basically a diluted aqua regia. And the nice thing is it doesn't kill you with fumes. Hello, Jean-Francois. I tried the glycine and hydrogen peroxide, and it's been several hours, and the gold foil is still there. I presume there may be a pH adjustment or a temperature adjustment that needs to happen. Don't know. Um, any ideas? I figure I'd just try some, probably, because we were doing about pH 11 on some other stuff, so I could adjust the pH and then hit the temperature anyhow, see what happens. But yeah, just the 3% hydrogen peroxide and 1 molar glycine did not seem to be highly reactive. So, don't know. Huh. What in the world could be going on, I wonder? Because the Eco Goldex works. A couple minutes and it's gone. I can't understand why other stuff isn't working.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Does.
If it was just hydrogen peroxide and glycine, then the pH is whatever the pH is. Huh. I'm presuming my glycine is actual glycine. It said it was glycine. Eco Gold X is much faster. Well, that's what I've found so far. What I'm trying to find is something that's even faster than Eco Gold X. That's how I was looking for an Aqua Regia analog, because I can certainly, if these concentrates are a reasonable grade, they have to be pretty good grade to be valuable in the quantities that we would be processing. Okay. When you're getting 100 pounds a day, better be pretty good grade. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make much money. As if Eco Gold X is faster, don't worry about it, Jean-Francois, because that's about, if I can do it with Eco Gold X, I'm pretty sure I can get it out of solution. Everything just fine. It's reasonably easy to handle. Reasonable cost. No big deal. So it's quite doable. And I'm just trying to find something that's better. So we shall see. But that's why I'm thinking I may wind up going with an Aqua Regia analog. Apparently, the active ingredient in Aqua Regia is when the nitrate reacts with the hydrochloric acid, whether it be from nitric acid or potassium nitrate or whatever, you wind up with something that's basically single nitrogen, a single oxygen, and a chlorine, NOCl. And that's pretty reactive molecule. Yeah, we could probably use one soon, Jean-Francois. If you get a chance, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, sulfides can be a real problem with various things. Cyanide and with mercury too. I don't know about fouling the cyanide so much as just consuming the cyanide. But yeah, this is one of the reasons you like to kind of make these things inert. That's where roasting comes in handy. Um, but I'm not sure. Again, I got plenty to do this week. Um, testing all this stuff while I wait for the assays to come back. And I'm also looking at the situation here where, at least initially, the solution concentrations in the bottle rolls seems to go like this, both in the sulfides and the roasted. So I'm thinking maybe a Craig robbing or something like that is going on. Not certain. Yeah, can you yeah, if you can scalp that galena out, not only does it make your chemistry simpler, Ricky, but you can then sell it just to get rid of it. So you don't have a toxic waste product, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a process problem.
Yeah. If you can get the nasty stuff out of your tailings, um, that's advantageous in many cases. Has anyone got any subjects or comments or anything you want to throw out there at this point? Because that's pretty much the weekly brief, as far as I can see.
And today is the day Monty moved into his.
Yeah, Eva's python is moving into his big aquarium today.
Really hate to move. Thinking.
Gallinaceus is chicken and partridge family, huh? Wonder why. Look gray? I have no clue. But anyhow, so waiting for results on those. Hopefully they'll be good enough to make for reasonably profitable processing. I have very little hope they'll be anywhere near as rich as the tests down there indicated. I think that's cross contamination. I just don't see how those numbers can be reconciled with what I'm seeing unless we had like 95% vaporization.
Yeah.
Well, they got it that one Bureau of Mines thing.
I know.
If you do get vaporization like that, that's where you might have to go to a pressure oxidation or something.
Oh, I as far as no test process out. Zero data. Five.
Yeah,
As
pretty
in
much.
zero. Process.
What is the secret? Oh, may fall to the bottom. Okay. When you're vibrating a pan, the key is large amplitude and reasonable acceleration. You don't vibrate it, you shake it. You move it in large movements. It gives it time to swish it one side and swish the other way. If you're vibrating it at a high frequency, it tends to pack it. The lab I sent it to, these samples are ones I sent. They brought a big sample to me. I did this stuff to it, and I sent this to Hiddle. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident Hiddle knows what he's doing. I told him what it is, and so he's expecting it. And each sample is marked at what they reported the grade to likely be. Again, I called Hiddle back and said, don't be surprised if it's off by an order of magnitude or two. I think that was cross contamination, you know. So it's just one of those deals where still trying to whip it into shape. It would be a lot nicer if I could be there, but that is not possible. So deal with the situation you're given. And please get the microphone closer to Eva's mouth. Well, Eva's way over there. I can kind of turn it this way.
Wants to hear.
Mr. Virtue.
Hi, Mr. Virtue. I never say anything important. This is a known fact. Considering nobody listens to me.
So
except
anyhow,
about so.
hey, I'm just doing theoretical stuff while I'm waiting for the actual data to show up, and then I will worry about more in the way of bottle rolls or whatever.
Yeah, I have moved over a little bit. I'm just sitting back because I'm playing my games.
Well, what is the cemented layer in, Jeff? Um, if you're just talking a packed layer like in a pan or whatever, increase the amplitude. And something else, I'm not sure. I'd have to know exactly what the situation was. You can also sometimes use an upwelling of water to keep things from packing, make it like quicksand. Bottom of the pan, yeah. Higher amplitude. Okay. You want to move it fairly quickly. And also sometimes, especially when your pan's pretty full, a circular motion will work better than a side to side motion. Okay. Once you get it liquefied, I usually, when I've got a full pan, I'll go circular, and once it gets liquefied, then I'll go side to side and start working the stuff out, and then circular side to side. As it gets smaller, then I can just go side to side, and it'll stay liquid without too much trouble. But I'm constantly adjusting the shaking methodology throughout the process, depending upon what's in the pan. And I still, after years and years and years, I'll still stick my finger in there to make sure it's liquid.
Yeah, you do that a lot.
Heavies meet in the middle. If you're doing a circular motion, it would tend to push them toward the middle, but not if you're doing a side to side. So, you know, six of one, half dozen of the other. Just keep it liquefied without getting too much agitation. You don't want it to be splashing up and down like Jeff Williams does when he's doing placer. That doesn't work well when you're dealing with 100 mesh gold. Anyone ever tried to pan or stratify by adding sugar solution? No, I certainly haven't. I would imagine in certain situations adding a solute to increase the density might come in handy, but I've never tried that. The other problem with these sort of things is it's okay if it's in a small contained setup, but if it's something, well, like as big as these guys with 4 Whiffly tables, it's gonna be A, gonna take a lot of sugar, and B, you're gonna have bees like a son of a gun. It's gonna be a major problem.
That would be as bad as the way remember when we were working with that orphan can of bee and the Emmy smell was so bad it was getting all kinds of insects in my feet.
Lots of moths,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Well, actually, it went in cycles. I mean, first we had the moths, and then we had some kind of bee that it got attracted.
Pretty much, Jean-Francois.
And then we also had the juniper beetle.
You can do things in a closed circuit that you can't do in an open circuit. You can do things in a small circuit that you can't do in a larger circuit. And permitting wise, you can do a lot of things in a tank leach on secondary containment you can't get away with in other things. If you got a concrete pad with walls high enough to contain all the liquid that's in process plus 50 or 100%, the regulators will look at you a lot more kindly. Huh. Interesting. I tell you what, that first day was, it
That
really
was,
took it out of me. Then each day was pretty long. That first day really sucked.
yeah.
Whenever I go to bed before Eva, it's weird.
You mean whenever I go to bed, what you're trying to say?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
always go to.
yeah. I always go for it.
I was in bed like an hour
I'm
and a half.
wondering if fine grinding can free the gold. To a certain extent, the finer the grind, the freer the gold, but also the more slimes, the more wear, the more energy requirement, and the less throughput. So it's a balancing act between how much liberated slash
And the costs
exposed
can get
gold
ridiculous.
versus all the other factors. It might, Jean Francois. One of the things that I find difficult about limited water is in the finish step, I like to be able to see what's happening. And that's awfully hard to do once you have uh, a lot of material floating around, turning it from clear water into mud. And so uh, I use multiple pans so that the primary rough panning is done in one, and then secondary panning is done in another, and then the final finish panning is done in a third. And by doing it that way, I can usually keep the water clean enough at the final stage to see exactly what I'm doing. It takes 3 pans to pull that one off. Not necessarily that hard. That's what I had to do.
Oh, that reminds
But
me when he showed you how he.
yeah, it was not ideal. That's another thing that happens in wide variety of human endeavors is what I call drift. And that is you can teach someone how to do something and they're doing it exactly like you taught them to. And then as soon as you leave them alone, it starts to drift
Mission.
into something different. Sometimes it's just nuanced, other times it gets radically different. You can use moisture and time to oxidize sulfate. Yep.
Didn't you teach me that they need to be kept submerged in water? Was
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sulfides en masse that are uh, damp can spontaneously combust. So you want to take that into account. The 6 inches would tend to mitigate that. It won't go into thermal runaway too easily like that. But also, you need to get oxygen to it. So, yeah. Yeah, grinding, the amount of grinding done it can vary from time to time. Like you could grind enough to free the sulfides, make a concentrate of those, and then regrind it to something really fine where you actually leached it. So grinding has to do with what you're grinding it for, and you can't have grinding after grinding. You know, you can grind, concentrate, regrind. Not hugely unusual. It's undesirable because it's more expensive, but often that makes sense.
I mean, there's a whole lot of this stuff that can be done, but it's too pricey.
I'm not an expert in that, Jeff. 6 months doesn't sound unreasonable to me from my experience with sulfides. And they'd probably be moistening them and raking them from time to time too to turn over uh, stuff on the bottom onto the top because they're trying to get oxygen to it. And so you want oxygen and moisture over time. Yep. That's why they wouldn't do it very thick. Yep.
I want to see what happens now. I mean, do they explode or do they start burning like landfill and done? Or are they all
I would imagine
oxidized,
they would be burning like you see when we're roasting them. It's not going to be violent.
and then are they oxidized when they're done burning?
Yes.
Hey, this could get very handy.
Yeah, they have to be turned over from time to time. I mean, I have to do it when I'm roasting them, over a cast iron pan and a big burner. That's one way you can tell when it's done is when you scrape it and kind of flip it over and you don't get any smoke and you don't get any smell. It's like, okay, they're pretty well roasted now. Such a wussy.
37.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's that late.
Watch.
And
Yeah, it's Labor Day.
yeah.
So anyhow, as I make progress on this, I'll keep you guys updated. I got a lot of work to do, that's for sure. This week's going to be mainly solution test. See if I can come up with something faster than Eco Goldex and less proprietary.
Yeah, it would be nice if try it.
Yep. Question about ball mill. Go ahead. I'm going to work on there's but I know where there's vein exposed on a ridge away from water. I could use field concentration. Well,
Dave Ben. I mean, it's pyrite.
or alluvial gold. If you can do that, if it's coarse enough, then you might be able to use a dry washer. Material can be used for the lining. Does it have to be hard or soft? Rubber. Actually, rubber lasts longer. Jean-Francois. Most of the big uh, production mills now, I mean, the big 20-foot ones and stuff, have rubber liners because they don't wear as much. The balls themselves wear as they hit each other. Does the ball mill affect that drum and balls? Primarily between the balls themselves, Jean-Francois. As they cascade, as it turns and they cascade down, Like hammer, 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 hammer.
It's the balls bouncing against.
Right, man. What matters is the balls, man.
It's all about
Big
balls.
steel balls.
It's all about balls.
Yeah.
Balls of all sizes.
But
We're
yeah,
equal opportunity in the ball department.
if you were to have a drum and a bunch of tires at just the right size so you could line the drum with them and then line both ends, you could run, just cut the sidewalls off and you could definitely run balls in. You could actually take something like a tractor tire and theoretically turn it into a ball mill too. That's right, man. It's all about the balls, David. All about the balls.
We got big balls and small balls.
Well, some people have them hitting each other. Can't do that.
Well, whose fault is that?
I think it was Dr. Maher, actually.
Yeah. It would have been so fun.
Yeah, they've been working on that for a while, Honey Bunny. I'm not aware of where they've made it commercially advantageous yet. Yeah, rod mills are also used. Well, that was this. If you go back and look at the videos from several years ago, you will see one live stream where I was not in frame very much. It was Minor Jim and Eva were handling that. I was just on the floor because it was a little uncomfortable. Any other questions, anybody? Yeah, gold is toxic, so excreting gold is a defense mechanism for bacteria.
I really did want to chance.
Oh, well.
And
When's the bus get here? I don't know. Whenever.
old swimming pool filter tanks, huh?
Um, Possibly if you line them with rubber, yeah. I don't know how much strength they have. Are they steel tanks or fiberglass? But if they were lined with rubber, you could get away with it for a while at least. A little late tonight. Yeah, I suppose we're about done, Shane. Yeah, half-inch rubber will last quite a while. That's the ball to ball that uh, does most of the crushing. Oh, yeah, Shane, we got a big sample of Mills sulfides from down south and did a bunch of tests on it and stuff, and we're waiting for results from the assay lab. It might handle the pounding, Jean-Francois. Not sure. Uh, Yeah, I know how it goes, Shane. Oh,
You were a bachelor once, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, folks.
Yeah, he's had a long week.
Yeah, it's been rough. That 3 days was rough because it wouldn't have been too bad except that first day was just killer. You know? Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. My ex-wife used to make a nice kidney gravy that was great with mashed potatoes. Homemade chili, that's not bad.
Pretty chili is great. Well, it depends on the chili.
Yeah, the polypropylene I think would handle the vibration and impact a little better than PVC. Not going to be as brittle, but yeah, if you line it with rubber, it should work. Let us know. For something that small, might see if you can find some used ones somewhere. It's best to have a mix of balls too. Some big, some medium, some small. Yeah, Ricky, I think it's about time for me too. Mm.
'Cause in a little while, we want.
Yeah, crushing ore can get pretty boring, all right. Well, if it's pool filter, it's going to be, less than 2 feet across. You're probably looking like, 4-inch balls down to 1-inch balls. What kind of horsepower will you need? That I don't know. I'm sure it's fairly easy to get that information off the internet. Some some company will have a formula for it. Oh, oh my goodness. Oh, well, I think I'm going to call it a night, folks. Anyone?
Happy Labor Day, everybody.
Yeah. Anyone else got a subject you need addressed briskly here?
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with just a bunch of moving steel. Nighty night, everybody.
Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. And happy Labor Day.
Yep. Y'all take care. Good night.
Good night, everybody.